anthrax with Ebola and then genetically manipulated it. And they have to think, okay, how do we countermeasure that? So in the labs, they're actually creating these terrible things to see how to defend against it. And it's just increasing. There's 15,000 people who have security clearances now to work with these select agents. There are 200 laboratories across the United States, including in large population centers. There's all kinds of security problems and lack of oversight enforcement. The NIH is doing a terrible job in watching what's happening in these labs, that they do it safely. So basically, germ war is coming to a neighborhood near you, but it's not the terrorists who bring it. It's the bioterror, military, industrial complex.
Our own people.
Yeah.
You know what amazes me, too, when this swine flu story broke several months ago, and I've always been saying there's not going to be a pandemic, yet the World Health Organization is now calling it a pandemic, even though there's only been 29,000 cases worldwide. We get more than that for just the normal flu. Yeah, there was a scientist who came out and said this was made in a laboratory, and they hushed that up. Do you remember that?
Certainly, we've heard that claim, George, that swine flu and all sorts of things are being brought to life in the labs, and it is remarkable that we're talking to you, the day after that they declared swine flu a pandemic around the globe.
Yeah.
This is the first time this has happened in 40 years.
I mean, I'm saying to myself, what do they know that we don't? I mean, it's almost as if they understand that maybe it was made, they've released it, and it will be a problem.
Well, some observers, Georgia, look in this as a way of basically prepping the public, getting them ready
for something.
For something, it's being hyped by the media for sure. I mean, like you said, we get more than 10,000 people a year who die of ordinary flu. And so what have we got here now? 1,200 cases? 24.
We've had 29,000 cases worldwide. We have 36,000 people who die from these 29,000 people. Only a handful have died.
Exactly. So in some ways they're getting ready, putting plans afoot, contingency plans for how do we deal with a pandemic. But another interesting thing, George, that you probably might be aware of, and I'm sure a lot of your audience have no idea, was that last October, the Department of Health and Human Services declared a 7-year national anthrax emergency. Did you know that right now we're living in an official government-declared anthrax emergency?
What's the emergency?
Well, that's the whole thing. What is the emergency? Why was that declared? Well, what it does is we know now already the anthrax vaccine is mandatory for all U.S. troops deployed overseas into theaters of war like Afghanistan and Iraq. It's been mandatory since the 90s, and a lot of soldiers have refused that shot.
And I think that's gotten some of them sick, too.
Exactly. So now, with this new law, they can begin giving the anthrax shot and make 2 first responders, civilian first responders, police, firemen, ambulance guys, emergency responders. There are plans afoot to get this to the postal workers next, and already plans, if need be, to inoculate the general population and build up the stockpiles. So this is all going on as we speak.
And quarantine those that don't take the vaccine.
Certainly. I mean, this is all part of a contingency plans of how we deal with these pandemics. And, the CDC has got plans right now for certain airports to be quarantine sites in pandemics, to divert flights if they have to. That was just reported yesterday. So certainly it does look like there are plans afoot, preparations for large-scale pandemics, and some might say, well, maybe it's germ war. Maybe germ war is coming. They're getting ready for it in some ways. So,
Good point. You know that old movie, What's It All About, Alfie? Right. What is it all about? I mean, and that is a very good point. Maybe germ warfare is coming, and either they know it's coming because they've heard things, or maybe we're going to initiate it. I don't know which.
And also, it's the business of getting ready for war, bio war and germ war, is huge. People are making a lot of money on all this, and it's become the bioterror military-industrial complex. So,
Is it safer, in their minds, these sick people who are doing this, to release these biologicals as opposed to a nuclear bomb?
I don't think they think it's a good thing at all. Some of them don't even think about it. I mean, the scientific community, the scientists are focused on the technical problems and university grants and tenure and consulting contracts and, a nice car. Basically, I don't think a lot of people are thinking about the bigger questions. They just go where the money's going. On the top level, what are these policy makers thinking? I don't know. I think it's madness, and I think we're heading towards catastrophe.
And I think, George, one of the big things in all this is always there's got to be a justification, the fear factor. For a long time, it was the Soviets, the communists were the big threat. They were going to, the bad guys are the germs. Now it's the unnamed terrorists who are out there who are going to do us harm. So, the fear factor plays into it. The media does, and the movies too. All these thrillers that we've seen, biological thrillers, in some way, prepare the public for this, and is always the fear is used as a justification for this. So one of the things that is important for us is that we don't necessarily, we should all be concerned about this, but at the same time, we should also empower ourselves, educate ourselves, see what can we do to stop this. How can we get involved? How can we call for more oversight, for more regulations, for our politicians to tackle this issue, for our media to take this issue seriously, and find out what is going on in our communities in these labs.
I think so too. Of the two major labs you've talked about, the Fort Detrick one here in Porton Down in the United Kingdom, which one is the bigger of the two? Is it Detrick?
Yeah, I think the U.S. Takes the lead in certain programs ahead of the British. But the U.S. has a network, and Detrick works closely with the Dugway Proving Grounds and Edgewood Arsenal, also pieces of the germ warfare complex. Dugway, out in the vast deserts of Utah, is where they test chemical and biological agents, ostensibly for detection systems, but they're also testing it on the battlefield. Basically, the military does exercises there in the desert that is suited to a bio war scenario. And, they're noticing this in Moscow and Tehran and China, and they're wondering, my God, what are these guys doing? What's going on? And Putin, in his last speech as, I believe, prime minister or president, I get mixed up which one he was and is now, in his last speech to the Russian...
now he's the prime minister.
Okay, so his last speech as president, his speech to the Russian Supreme Council, he said that the West is making dangerous advances in nanotechnology, information technology, and bio defense technology. And he says, we notice this and we will not be left behind. So basically, it looks like we might be in the midst of a germ war arms race. And that's why it's very important to get a political movement going. We had a screening on Capitol Hill last week, which was well attended, and we also had in attendance Representative Rush Holt and Representative Gerald Nadler, who are the co-sponsors of a bill to call for a national commission to study the FBI's handling of the anthrax case. I think it's a very important bill, which give Congress subpoena power. We might be getting to the bottom of this. It's a question whether the Democratic leadership will push for it. It doesn't seem to be high on the agenda. But if enough citizens contact their congressmen and put pressure on, maybe we can actually even get a hearing or something done there. So that's the political action.